All right, here we go. Another Square Dance Callers Talking tonight. I've got a gentleman. He's in New York. It's David Eno. How are you, sir?
Good. I'm great, Charlie. How are you?
Very good, sir. First time we've got to speak face to face, for lack of a better way of saying it,
Right.
on Zoom. We've talked a little bit through text and things like that, and on phone calls. But
hmm
tonight we want to talk about you. So first of all, let's start off with the basic we always do. Where are you?
I live in a small town about a half hour south of Syracuse, New York.
Okay.
Um, and for those who don't live anywhere near New York, it's for about 4.5 hours from New York City. If I'm out west or if I'm in another country, I have a lot, people will say, "Wow, you live in New York. You must go to New York City all the time." I think I was there once. So
No kidding. Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's the way I think. When somebody says New York, I just assume it's New York City. But
it's about four and a half
no.
hours away.
Oh wow. Okay. That's like Atlanta to Savannah for me. I can imagine. Yeah, it's not something I would do all the time.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Okay. And we right before we started recording, you were telling me you just came back from Canada. You were calling over there. Tell me about that.
Yes, I called a dance yesterday with Dave Hutchinson, who's a caller in Canada. He's Canada Dave. I'm
Okay.
US Dave. We do a lot of dances together throughout the year.
Dave Hutchinson.
And we kind of had similar backgrounds in calling, we're similar age and we work well together. And
Okay.
we had a dance yesterday. It was called Spring into Summer, I believe.
Spring.
I hope I got that right.
Okay.
So it was a dance
Where,
we did
where in
yesterday.
Canada was that?
It was near Kingston, Ontario.
Okay.
Um, I'm 2 hours from the Canadian border if I drive north, and it's about another 45 minutes from there. So it's not a long drive for me. But it was uh, it was a great dance. We had a lot of fun. We had I'm gonna guess maybe 8 squares total. We had 2 rooms. You have to
That's
guess.
very nothing wrong with that. 8 squares is really good, especially for down here.
Right.
You get 8 squares in Georgia, and you're filling up a hall for the most part.
Right.
Unfortunately, used to be better than that, but not so much now.
Right.
Well, so tell me about it, man. When did you start dancing?
Well, I took lessons starting in the fall of 1975 when I was 9. My dad was a square dance caller. He and my mom took square dance lessons in '74, and my dad had decided he wanted to try to be a square dance caller. Um, we had this building out in back of their house, which was, I don't know, it was an old building, kind of a cross between a barn and a garage, I think. And we put a cement floor in it and cleaned it up, and it would hold 2 squares. And when my dad decided he wanted to have a little class, um, he was one guy short of having either 1 or 2 squares. They needed another guy to fill a square. And so he asked me if I wanted to dance with my mom. And, I said, yeah, sure. And I liked it right away. And I try to think back and remember why I liked it. And I don't know if I can answer that, but I just know that I did. It was some kid. I don't even know who that kid was back then, but I remember liking it right away and just, y- you know, it, it's all the rest is history, I guess. So it's and remember, I was digging through some old records just because to see what square dancing was like
Yeah.
back then. And there's these sets in order records,
Wow. Okay. Very
and
nice.
and then we had
75. Yeah.
um, 50 basic calls, and then there was a few more extended basics, and then there was experimental calls, and so Um, I just remember loving to learn all of the moves. Once I got going, um, I remember that my mom and dad would go on, I think it was Thursday nights to Syracuse to a group where they were learning challenge dancing, which was everything after the 50 or
Right.
75 calls. And looking back, they probably wondered if they created a monster because I would always like, Mom, Dad, let me go with you because they were doing cool things there. They were doing
That's
load the
awesome.
boat, spin chain the gears, and all these really cool calls, which were all challenge things at the time.
Right.
And but they would drag me along, and I'd find somebody to dance with.
That's awesome.
And
So your dad was a caller. How did he do that for a while?
he called for a lot of years. He never did it for a living. He was a high school math teacher for a living,
Okay.
and he was a local caller. I mean, regional, I guess. I wouldn't say local, a regional caller. And yeah, he called from well, from 75, I guess, up through. He hasn't been too busy, maybe till 10 years ago.
Okay.
He's 84 now, and he doesn't call anymore or
Gotcha.
dance.
Okay.
But he's
So you started dancing when you were 9, loving it, enjoying it immediately. When did you decide you wanted to try and grab the microphone and start calling?
well, I think when I was 10, I think that my dad suggested I do a singing call,
Okay.
and I learned Rocky Top,
Nice. Okay.
and that was the first singing call I did, and I learned, started learning more singing calls after that. A lot of the old, it's back when a lot of the old Chaparral records were new.
Yeah.
You have Something About You, Baby, I Like, and Rockin' in Rosalie's Boat. We all hear these things now,
You still hear "Rockin' in Rosalie's Boat" all the time
yeah,
around.
those some of those old Chaparral records or some of the older records, you just can't beat them. I mean, they hold up today. It's good stuff.
Outstanding. So Rocky Top were your first, and of course with your dad being a caller. Any other influences out there calling wise besides your dad that kind of helped you along?
Oh yeah, yeah. Lee Copman.
Wow, that's a good one.
Yeah, he's going back to these sets and order records. You have like 3 or 4 records. These things come out every year, and I don't know, probably a lot of people know about these, but if you don't, it's usually has it's a record, 4 tracks per side,
Okay,
and there'll be 8 callers, and they'll once through a hoedown, and you get to hear some different callers and different music, and we used to dance to these things too.
that's awesome.
Um, you know, and for whatever reason, um, Lee Copman, when he was on here, I liked his stuff. It was a little bit different,
Mhm.
and I liked his music. I liked his voice, his presentation, and it got to be so. You know, if new music would come out, if Lee did it, it was like my first. He was like the rock star to a 10-year-old.
Sure. Yep.
And
That's awesome.
so later on, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but later on, I got to be friends with Lee, and I'd gone to a couple of, one of his college schools, and learned a lot from him, and got to be friends with him, which was kind of surreal at first, but
Sure.
it was, but it's he's definitely he and Steve, his son Steve.
Yep,
I just
Steve.
talked to Steve about 10 minutes ago.
No kidding. Okay. Nice guy. I've spoken to him once or twice. Yep.
Right. And
Uh,
those guys are probably responsible for the way I call today.
okay. Well, that's huge names, man. That's awesome. I can tell you, and I've talked about this on my podcast many occasions about meeting other callers that you
Mhm.
hold in such high esteem. And
Right.
the saying is you never want to meet your heroes, but it's kind of false from what I've run into with
Oh,
square dance callers.
yeah.
Just about all, if not all, that I've met are nice in one way or the other. Some of them are just over the top. Everything,
Right.
anything you want to talk about, let's do it. Others will, carry on conversation with you. So never had a bad experience meeting somebody that I kind of looked up to, or just like,
Right.
wow, I love the stuff that guy does or that lady does,
Right.
and always been impressed with that. And you got the Copmans, and that's royalty right there in square dance, man.
You know who else I listened to some as a kid that were influenced? Bronk Wise did
Wow,
some
okay,
really creative stuff, and there was a caller who I believe was a national caller. I think he came from New England. Was Jerry Schatzer was his name,
okay,
and he passed away at a young age. I think he was kind of in the Northeast. I think he moved to California in maybe the early '80s, and he's not around anymore. But he had some really interesting stuff. He was fun to listen to.
well, with all those callers and all that, and so you've been calling for quite some time now. Do you have any takeaways or anything like that? Any kind of advice or something that you kind of hold on to for yourself?
Um, yeah, um, that's a good question. Uh, I think that if you're a caller, like a dancer, start easy
Mhm.
and understand the material um, that you're working with. I see some callers, and I can't, I wouldn't name names if I could, but I can't. But
I understand. Yep.
but there's some callers that say, I want to be a caller and I'm writing C1.
Yep.
Like, well, you know, okay. And, but understand, right and left through and star through it and understand those things too. I mean, you gotta crawl before you can walk. Um, there was, I've had advice. In fact, I think either Lee or Steve back, a long time ago had mentioned that it's great if you start with two couples and give yourself little drills, like have two couples and have them do a right and left through, puts them on the opposite side.
Right.
Now, without planning, sort of getting into sight calling, get them back to where they were, but don't call another right and left through. And then, or then maybe you want to have the two ladies chain. Now, don't call a ladies chain. Get them back to where they were, or a lead to the right, or think of your own little figure. And of course, I think a long time ago, when I was told this, start with two couples, I probably said, I don't want to do that. But kids, don't listen to your parents, but you
There
realize
you
you're
go.
right after you get older. But that, um, understand how the calls work down to the simplest level, and
Absolutely.
um, that
That's a,
yeah,
that's a really good answer. That
yeah,
I think what a lot of people don't take when they're first starting out, it's better, and this is my thought, it's better to know where the call ends and where the people are going to be.
right,
And if you know that before you call it, you're a step ahead. If you're just like spin the top and you're waiting to see where they're going to end up after spin the top, you're a step behind at that point. You got to
right,
know. And everybody I've ever talked to said you should. Now, I don't practice this, but you should dance a level above what you call. I don't dance advanced. I dance plus. I've taken advanced a couple times, but and I call mainstream and plus. But yeah, I wouldn't even attempt to go into A and C just based off of, hey, I've watched people do it. I'm going to try it. You got to know where the calls are going is the main
right.
thing. That's my takeaway is know where the call's going before you call it.
Yeah, yeah, that's important. I mean, if you have two parallel ocean waves and you call spin the top, you want to know they're at a tidal wave,
Yep.
and you probably want to know if the makeup of the waves, if it's going to be, you know, boy girl girl boy or girl boy boy girl, or just
And if you have your own club and your dancers think that the call is um I'm gonna lost now. And it's spin the top, boys right and left through. A lot of people think that's one call, and it's
right.
not. But
Oh
but
no,
that's really all you hear in most places. Not all, but you'll hear spin the top, boys move up and a right and left through.
right,
Or, you know, so every now and then I'll toss in a slide through,
right,
something like that. All right, and
right,
just to kind of throw them off, and you'll catch people, and they're like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa," and I'm like, "No, it's not one call." So
right,
that's
right.
awesome, man.
And then do it again with them and say it flows great.
Yeah,
There's nothing wrong with it. And
and once they see it, they're just like, "Wow, that's pretty good." So
right,
outstanding.
right.
Well, and so for as long as you've been calling and everything, um, is there anything you'd like to have done differently?
Oh boy. Well, I say may, I don't know. May I say maybe traveled more when I was younger,
Yeah, it's a
but
good one.
but I don't even know if that's true or not. What I wish I would have had the opportunity to um to just learn and dance all the levels
Okay,
when it was easy to learn. Back younger and you just absorb things easier.
absolutely.
But there was never any, there was very little dancing, very little C1, and nothing above that really ever in this area. It would have been fun, and I read a lot, and
Mhm,
it's one thing to read the calls and say, oh, I know how this works,
mhm.
but to get out there on the dance floor and react to it is just
I agree. And I tell that to people that dance to me regularly and some that I see every couple of weeks or months. you've got to dance to other people, because the way I say square through four is a completely different than the next guy saying square through four. Same words, but it comes out different and it sounds different.
Right.
So to be a better dancer, you've got to dance to other people. You can't lock into one person, no matter how good they are. So
Right. Yeah, you need the best caller in the world, and then you still have to dance. I agree 100%.
so now you've gone into Canada. I mean, you've called a lot of places, I'm sure. Are there any places you'd like to do in the future that you haven't had a chance to?
I'd like to. I've never called in Europe. I called in Tokyo. I've never.
Okay, okay.
I'm. I hear. I hear. Lots of good things about the dancers in Europe. In Sweden or Germany, and I've seen some of them in Zoom sessions, and then so talk with them. I'd like to go there sometime. Finding the
Absolutely.
time, so that would be fun.
In all the so you've been to Tokyo. What other places have you called in?
Other than that, I'm mostly a regional caller.
Okay,
I have been to Virginia, and I've gone national conventions and called. I mean,
nice. Okay. What's one of the nicest or best venues you've called at? Whether it be the dance floor or the setup or anything stand out to you?
oh, there's a lot. There used to be up in farther north, kind of up on the edge of the Adirondack Mountains. There's
Mhm.
a little town called Boonville, which had it was a campground, and they had a building that they had built just for square dancing,
Right.
and it had a nice wooden floating floor, and it had a little stage, and it was set up to be you know for square dancing, and it was nice to call there because it was good sound. It was good sound unless it rained, because it had a tin roof, and if it really came down hard, you couldn't hear the music at all.
Okay.
Uh, but it was a great venue, nice atmosphere, and um, oh, there's been a lot of you know that one stands out locally.
Okay.
I mean,
Gotcha.
I'll be honest, a lot of times when I go in, especially if it's someplace that I haven't been before,
Yeah.
like it could be outside in the winter and I might not notice. It's worried about. Hope this goes okay. Hope this
I'm
goes.
sure. I'm sure. Well, is there anything that let's see the way I put this in, that any stories that most wouldn't know about you that would be funny or interesting, whether it be square dance calling or just your life in general?
No, sure. Um, I was, I was just talking with Steve about this, and I said nobody knows me, so anything. But no, I had a student pilot's license. I could fly
Wow.
planes.
Okay. Very nice.
And I was thinking about funny calling stories, and I'm sure there's been several. I remember um, being a kid. I don't know, I was 10 or 11 years old, and there was this guy on television that was selling records where he spoofed songs. It was kind of like an early version of what Weird Al Yankovic
Weird
did.
Al. Okay.
And there was this song on there called "The Bird of Paradise," and the verse went, "May the bird of paradise fly up your nose." That was the verse that he used. So this came out as a singing call, but the real song, not the fly up your
Okay.
nose one. And it was, and the real verse was, "It's the bird of paradise who really knows." I think that's the way it went. So when that came out as a singing call, and my dad used to get, it was Handhurst record service, which what would happen once a month. You'd get a cassette tape in the mail with
Nice.
previews of all the new music that was out, and then you could order, by snail mail. There was no
Yeah.
email.
Yep.
So this came out. So I remember hearing the song from TV, get the record, and I practice it, and I'm going to do it. And one of the things that I'm telling myself is, don't say fly up your nose. Use the verse that's on the singing call. So I'm doing the thing, and doing the singing call, and all of a sudden, all the dancers start laughing, and I'm like, oh man, did I just say fly up your nose? Sure enough, didn't even know I said it.
Great. That is fantastic.
It's funny now. It was horrifying
And
now.
I'm sure.
But,
Oh, that's really good. It's very
uh,
nice.
uh,
Oh, That's good. And I tell people the reason I started this is for the stories and everything, and then it gets into about the actual callers, especially for those who, I mean, now you've traveled out of country and called, and I've never done that. And a lot haven't. But so it's just to get those stories out to the callers who don't get around, that don't get to go to a lot of conventions and stuff like that. I'm fortunate to the point where I go to a lot of stuff. If not for my wife scheduling, there's no way I could figure it out. She
Right.
figures it out and says, all right, this is when you're going here and here and here. So luckily I have a planner in my life that'll do
Yeah.
that. So also you have a KISS t-shirt on.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So and you said that you were 9 in 75. So that gives me an idea of how old you are, because I was born in 67. So I know how old I was in 75.
Yeah. I was born in
Um,
November, so
so we're both kids of the 80s.
yeah.
So music genre, if it's not square dance, what are you listening to?
Oh, rock, hard rock. I don't know if I like this thrash, death metal, whatever they call it,
Yeah.
but hard rock. Kiss, Ozzy,
Well,
um, and the Cheap Trick, Aerosmith. I saw Judas
nice. Yeah.
Priest a couple weeks ago in
Wow.
Syracuse, and
Awesome.
just it's funny. I'm going to step back a little bit. When I started square dance calling,
Mhm.
um, at about the same time, give or take a couple months, was when I got my first Kiss record.
Okay.
So I mean, a lot of things kind of happened. Square dance, Kiss record. A lot of things kind of Uh, it was a big year for sort of defining who I am as an adult, I guess.
Wow. Okay.
And playing the guitar, and then I started playing the guitar in fourth grade, which would have been about the same time.
Now with an instrument, and I tried several years ago to learn instruments. I took lessons and all, and it just never connected with me. And of course, I didn't put the work in. How often do you think you play now guitar?
About an hour a day.
Wow. See that's it's something you've got to do. And it's the same thing I talk to people about square dance calling. Um, I do some kind now, and you don't have to, and some people do, some people don't. I do some kind of choreography every day,
Me too.
either on my laptop with checkers.
Yep.
I've always got some kind of checkers laying around. If I'm sitting in a restaurant and um, if I'm by myself, if I'm at work, I'll sit there and I'll have salt shakers and all that, just playing around. Some stuff
Sugar
I
packet
write, some
work.
stuff, but there's always something going on choreography wise for me.
Yep.
And when I'm listening to the radio, of course, I've got Spotify, so all I do is listen to 80s and 80s rock and classic rock. And so I'm not going to hear anything new and be like, wow, that should be a square dance song, but I'll hear something that I haven't thought of in a long time and
Yeah.
say, wow, that should be. And then, hope that something like that comes out. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Old guitar
So,
picks are good as checkers too.
okay.
Aiming at the direction that they're pointing, that the dancer's facing.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, that's all you play an hour a day guitar. That's awesome.
I try to write 10 sequences a day of some level squared in.
Okay. That is impressive. That's outstanding work right there.
Yeah.
It's something you have to do. Um,
Have
you
the heart.
know, especially before I had a club where I called regular. I call now. I call every first and third Thursday. Um, and then I also, if I pick up in it, I have a lot of stuff on the weekends that I've booked. So I'm regular. I call every week now, somewhere, sometime, some time frame. And so, but I still put in the work at home with the choreography and everything.
Yep.
But man, if you don't have a club and you're just grabbing one or two dances a month and you're not doing choreography, I don't know how people can do it. I mean, you're not picking up, you're not seeing things. It's
Yeah.
tough. You got to be in front of people too. So you have to get out. You got to go do tips.
Right.
Luckily, in Georgia, where I am, when I was starting out, if anywhere I went, the caller who knew me, they were like, "Hey, man, grab your records," because we still had records in 2012 when I started this,
Yeah.
and they were like, "Hey, man, come up here, let's do something," And if I could change anything, I would have started patter early on, because I really struggled for a couple of years with patter, and I still do. I mean, everybody does to a point, but because my memory is awful. As you get older, I can't memorize like you used to could. I would love to have started square dance calling when I was 15, 16, 17 years old,
Yeah.
because it's another world. I'd have had something to do in school because I certainly wasn't doing schoolwork. So it would have been nice to have square dancing. Oh my goodness. So I don't ask a lot of people this, but you've brought up a couple. What's your favorite? You have any favorite concerts that you've been to?
Oh, I've been to a lot. Kiss concerts are always fun.
Yep.
Most of those. Uh, Musically, the ones that stand out are the ones that are not part of a tour. I remember seeing Aerosmith at the New York State Fair in Syracuse one year,
Nice.
and
Okay.
they weren't on tour. A band had canceled, and they came in just to fill the spot at the last minute. And so it was them with no real stage.
Mhm.
They weren't on tour, so they didn't have a stage that they carted around with them. And they just kind of got out there with some lights and an opening band and played for a long time. So you get to hear things that they don't usually play. Special things like that are fun. I guess, but there's I like the music scene. I mean, I could never be and wouldn't try to be a rock star. Look at me, I couldn't be, but I still like the music. And
Yeah. I was lucky enough. I caught, gosh, it's been 18 years probably. I finally saw Aerosmith when they came to Atlanta. It's been 18 years at least now, I think, maybe
yeah,
16. Um, Metallica a few times.
yeah,
Growing up in Savannah, when I did, not a lot of to see rock, to see the Leonard Skinners of the world or anything like that, or Metallica. You had to go to Jacksonville, Florida, which was 2 hours. And
yeah.
at 15 and 16, at 16, my dad wouldn't let me drive 2 hours to see a concert. So smaller things came back then. Country was much smaller.
Right.
So I saw Randy Travis. Gosh, I can't remember who else I saw now. I saw George Jones in Savannah, 1,000 years ago. The one up, I saw Run DMC in 1980. Not, I saw Run DMC in 85, and I saw the Beastie Boys in 86. Beastie Boys was the most amazing concert. I'm
Was
sorry.
that? Yeah.
I've loved Metallica concerts, but the Beastie Boys was just another world in 86 for me.
Was
So
when did their License to Ill came out that had Fight for Your Right to, was
that
that
was it.
around that
That
time?
was that tour. That was the License to Ill tour.
Yeah. I
Gosh,
have that
that was
record
something else.
somewhere. That was uh, I'm not a huge fan of rap in general,
Mhm.
but I always say that you can't. It's hard to hate everything about it. You don't like rap, but there's one record that's
Yep.
good, and that was, or a few, and that was one of them.
Oh gosh, yeah. I saw a lot of different kind of concerts. Never got a bunch of rock in Savannah, unfortunately. So I had to catch that later in life.
Mm. I think I've been you know I've been lucky enough to meet some people. I've met Gene
Wow.
Simmons a couple times.
No kidding. Okay.
I've met you know Ace Frehley, who was their original guitar player, and Kiss's original guitar player. And I was thinking about this earlier. I remember meeting Gene Simmons, and I remember meeting Lee Kopman, and it felt the same. And I was thinking about that, since we had talked on the phone and about people being mentors and people you look up
Yeah.
to. And I remember, uh, you know, most of these people you meet are normal people. It's just they're, they, I guess they,
Now, in meeting them, Gene Simmons and Ace Frehley, which one would you rather talk to again, or do you have a choice?
Gene Simmons, I think.
Gene Simmons. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. Ace is quiet, so
Yeah,
you
I
talk
figured
with him,
that.
but
Yeah.
um he's
There's a
quite a
few.
nice guy. He's just you know Gene is interesting. Gene is out
I
there.
would like to meet him. I'd definitely like to talk to Paul Stanley.
Uh-huh.
Seems like a really interesting guy.
Yeah.
Of course, one of my just again growing up in Savannah with country, George Strait. If I could just have 15 minutes to sit down and talk to that guy,
Right.
that would just be awesome. These
Yeah.
other guys, I used to think I wanted to meet Garth Brooks. He came along much later, but
Right. Right.
George Strait, oh gosh, I can't imagine talking to that guy. But
Yeah. I'll tell you that
I sent him a couple emails. He's not responded. He won't be on the podcast for some reason.
right. I'll keep trying. Um, you know, you keep taking
Oh my
farther
goodness.
away from square dancing, but I met I met Ace,
Nice.
and got a new record out, and it's actually
Awesome.
it came out and it's really good, and I really liked it more than I thought I would. And there was a band in the '80s called Trickster
Hmm.
who had I don't know, maybe one or two hits, and and Ace's record was produced by the guitar player for Trickster. Well, it happened to be Trickster came played at a bar about an hour away, a few weeks ago. So I went down and I talked to him. I got to talk with his name's Steve Brown. I got to talk with him for quite a while, and I said, hey Steve, would you ever want to think about producing some of my music? And he said, sure. So I don't know what the details are, but he said call him in the middle of June. So maybe in a couple of weeks I'm going to try to get a hold of him. And
That'd be
uh,
awesome, man.
yeah, I just it's not going to be anything. I'm not looking for fame. I mix my own music here and try to come up with something that sounds good. And I'll have something that I think, hey, this sounds pretty good. And then I'll listen to something that's been professionally produced and
Yeah,
sound that good. So it would be nice if I could see what somebody who knows what they're doing can do with a song or two.
that'd be awesome, man. Let me know when that happens. Let me know when you talk to him. That'd be great. Whew.
Yeah, middle of June. I don't know what that means in the in show business world. It might mean August. I don't know. But a couple weeks, or a week or so, I'll probably try to get in touch with him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, with all the music we've talked about, but do you have any favorite singing calls for square dance?
Oh, yeah. Um, a lot of personally, a lot of the old Chaparral songs are good. I think we mentioned that earlier.
Yep.
Um, there's Fisherman's Luck that Jerry Story kind of made
Mhm.
uh, famous, and I do that one, and people seem to like that. I think it's a
Nice.
good
Okay.
song. It's popular. Um, oh, I get, with my dad being a caller, I've got a bookshelf full of records over here.
Sure.
Never be able to go through them all. But there's, you know,
Well, now,
even
when
rock.
so do you call for a club in New
Yeah,
York or okay?
I called for a club called Shirts and Skirts, and they're in Fulton, New York, which is north of Syracuse.
Okay.
And I call on Sundays and in Sunday afternoons for a little group that we do A2 and C1, and that club's been dubbed the Innovators.
Nice. Innovators like that. Okay. When you're going into a dance, and one thing that some of my buddies that are callers have told me once I finally got a club, it took me a few years to finally latch on with one.
Mhm.
Um, you know, it, it's not very easy because when you're just catching up, you're catching a dance once a month at different clubs. You can run the same 8 songs with patter, and everything else, and you can have your own little set list, and you're just operating off of muscle memory. How do you go into doing your dances for your clubs? What's your process for programming something like that?
Oh, it's one of the reasons I try to write stuff every day, so you don't get stale. I mean, if you're on tour and you're calling a different city every night, like you said, you can do the same thing every night. But if you're a local caller, you can't do that. You have to be
Yep.
entertaining. Yeah, I guess just a lot of planning, a lot of thought, and so one thing I like about calling is you write things, and all of a sudden that you still learn. No matter how long you've called, you'll come up with something that's like this is really cool, and and but yeah, it's work. You have to work at it. I don't call it work. It's fun. You have to like doing planning, yeah, music. Try to not use the same music all the time.
Right.
Um, really just you know, you get so you know your dancers, and they get so they know you, and try to make it so they can't anticipate you.
Yeah,
They can,
that just like the spin the top right and left through. I'll catch them doing other calls that they know what's coming a lot of times, and I will mix it up when I can. And I'm like, don't anticipate. It's it always seems to be the man in the square. It's always anticipate. I don't ever catch the woman, turning or whatever early, but I'll
yeah,
see the guy
yeah,
who's moving quick. I don't
yeah.
know why that is.
It's always that. Yeah,
I guess they want to leave. Who knows?
right.
Uh,
But yeah, it's I just had a thought. It's gone now, so I don't know what it was. But
well, I'll tell you what. Since we're talking about dances, tell me. You said you got a dance coming up this weekend. Tell me about it.
yes, we have a benefit dance in memory of my mom. My mom had Lou Gehrig's disease, which is ALS, and we lost her in March of 2011.
Okay.
And we have dance every year. It's usually the first Saturday in June. It was the second Saturday this year. It's coming up this Saturday, where we have a dance. Local, any caller can come in and volunteer their time. It's mostly local callers. Sorry, and we dance from 1 to 8. We alternate mainstream and plus. We have an hour and a half for dinner, which we throw some advanced and challenge in there, or whoever wants to come and dance. And we have raffles. People will make baskets or things to raffle off, and ev- and all the proceeds, everything, go to the ALS Association. Um, this year is going to be our 12th one. We missed a couple years for COVID.
Right.
We couldn't dance. This is going to be 12th. And out of the first 11, uh, we probably cleared 25,000 that we've raised so far, $25,000. It was over 20 after the 10th one. And so it's probably if not 25, close to it. We've been, you know, it's uh it's a good dance. Don't like the reason we have to do it, of
Right.
course.
I understand.
What we do with the money, you know, well, ALS, if I never really knew what it was till my mom got it, and then I know too much about it after that. And it's it's a disease that it doesn't affect your brain. You're perfectly sharp, perfectly normal, but you lose control and lose the ability to move. You know, arms, legs. She couldn't talk. The only thing she could move is her eyes at the end, and it's just pretty much torture. As inside, you know where you are, and you know everything that's going on. So once we learned she was diagnosed, the first one of these benefit dances we had was in honor of, and it was the last time she danced. She danced half of a tip when she still could, and then by the next year she wasn't with
Right.
us. And so whatever money we raise, and $25,000 is a lot of money to us. It probably buys, I don't know, 30 seconds of research or something. Research is expensive.
Mm.
So what we use the money for is the ALS Association in Syracuse. They have, little branches all over the place, all over the country. Um, we asked them to use it to buy a piece of equipment for something that they called a loan closet. Uh, a lot of the equipment that the patients need is expensive, and insurance won't cover some of these things, like an electric wheelchair. You have to have certain types of insurance in order to get these things paid for. They're expensive, and you don't need them for very long,
Okay.
unfortunately. So um, the ALS associations have loan closets where they will purchase pieces of equipment. If you're a patient and you need one, you use it, you give it back when you're done. And so we always ask them to put the money towards buying a piece of equipment that somebody can use, because that seems to be the best way. It keeps it local, and that's kind of important. I think the most important thing is that if you're a patient, um, you know, it probably benefits the patient more than putting, money into research because they don't have any idea what
Right.
causes this, or they have no idea how to cure it. And
Well, man, what you're doing is awesome. Sorry you had to go through that with
yeah,
your mom. Um, I've never personally known anybody with it. I mean, I've known of people, whether it be through TV news and things like that, that have had it.
yeah,
So man, that's awesome work. You got flyers for this? I'm guessing.
yeah, I can.
If you could email me a
I
couple
will
of
email
those,
you.
and I'll put these on the podcast. And of course, this will be out by the time I say it, but we're going to put this out early in the week because it's coming up. What's the date of it this year?
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Oh yeah.
And I'll just throw this out there. It has my email address on the bottom for information, and I
Okay.
think it has my phone number too. And
Okay. And you said it's the 8th, June 8th.
June 8th. Yep.
Okay.
1 to
Awesome.
9 p.m. Eastern time in Fulton, New York. The address is on the flyer.
Awesome.
It's always a fun dance. It's
Okay.
always a really good
I'll
dance.
definitely get it out there. And any some of the callers that you know are going to be there, you want to throw their names out there?
Yeah. Uh, Local Ron Schweitzer is a local caller. We've got caller Rich Rosenfield, Ron Brown. Um, hang on a second. I want to look at the schedule. I don't want to leave anybody out.
Okay.
Uh, Jim Gata,
Oh, okay,
and
nice.
we have you know that's the list of callers we have this year.
Okay, very
Uh,
nice.
we we've had more in the past. There's Gil Porter was a caller in Rochester. He passed away this year. He was a great caller. um,
Well, we'll definitely get the word out. I don't know how, like I say, I know how many people view each one of my podcasts. I don't know who they are.
right.
Except for that every now and then somebody will come up to me at a convention or something and say, "Hey, man, I really like the podcast," or whatever, or
Yeah.
give me things like that. So hopefully we can get it out, and if we can get 2 or 3 more people just watching this that are going to come out, or however many, that'd be awesome. Um,
Yeah.
so whatever you have that I can put out and attach to this, absolutely email it to me, and we'll do
Okay.
that.
It will.
Um, let's see. Well, we talked about it earlier, and you've already gone out. If you could go anywhere in the world and call a dance, where would it be and why? Well, you said Europe, and it's because of the dancers. Anywhere else?
Oh, not you know, going back to Tokyo would be fun.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It's one of these. And I've had. You're nervous the first time you go places. You
Sure.
can't help it. I've had callers ask me, if you, how long does it take before you stop getting nervous when you go someplace to call? And I just tell them I'll let you know
Yep.
when
I'll
when I
let you know. And I was just they had what's called a spring sachet. It's a dance that our federation here in Georgia puts on, and it was yesterday, and it was Friday and Saturday, just passed in Rome, Georgia. And I went up there. I know every single caller that's there. I know 75% of the dancers that are there. And I was nervous the moment I stepped up there to do my first singing call. And singing calls are just muscle memory to me now at a convention. I'll go up there with something I've done plenty of times, but I'm still that first moment. I'm like, don't miss to get in, don't miss to get in, in my head.
yeah,
So yeah, the nerves never go away. I think if the nerves went away, I wouldn't want to do it anymore. I
yeah,
kind of
it's
look for
probably
that
good for you.
excitement. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
And now that being said, are you going to be at nationals in Wisconsin?
not this year.
Okay.
Into Calgary to the Canadian National Convention
Oh,
this year.
nice. Okay. At some
Uh,
point, I'd like to get up there and do their convention.
Never been to one of theirs.
Okay.
I've
I'd love to get up.
been to a few. You know, I think it was 1994, maybe. The convention was in Portland, Oregon, and I called there, and I got a slot. For some reason, it was either a Friday, Saturday night at 8 o'clock in the Plus Room, and there was just so many people. There was, I remember at the time estimating about 300 squares. I mean, it was just when you would pack these gyms, and I've had, been asked before, what's my most memorable one of my most memorable times calling, and that's one of them. But then I think it's memorable, but you get up there and you do your tip, and it's all a blur. So, it's kind of memorable, but I don't remember anything that happened. I just remember that it did. But that was.
I'm still, I mean, when the conventions, I've been to the last 7 national conventions and the last 9 caller labs.
Hmm.
And every time, especially, well, I haven't called any at Caller Lab because that's a different setup. But the national conventions, I'm a nervous wreck. One, because I'm lucky if I look out and I see a couple that I know. If you're in certain halls and you've got 20 squares,
Yeah.
and so I'm trying to look for somebody that I know that I can pair up before I start.
Yeah.
But then I also know that there's about 10 or 20 or 30 callers that know me that are either dancing or standing on the side. And I'm like, God, don't screw this up. And
Right.
I've also realized that half the time they're not listening. They're doing their own thing, but yeah, it's a nerve wracking event going to a national convention or even a decent sized state convention. Because I worry more about the other callers hearing me and some like, oh my God, I can't believe you did that, something like that. So,
Right.
but that's still a lot of fun. Um, Gosh.
Mm.
Yeah, so I would love to get up to Canada and do their convention. That would be awesome. But yeah, I'm going to be at nationals and
Right.
looking forward to that. I'm actually driving up, which is a short little 11 and a half hour drive. So nothing terrible.
Right. Right. That's short when you're. That's good. You know, COVID. You know, I remember when COVID first happened, and you used to just driving all the time. Long drives, do a dance, drive back home, whatever. And then for all of a sudden, everything stops, and
Mhm.
there's nowhere to go. And it was a big adjustment. All of a sudden, not have anything to do at night. And but then you get used to that. So then when everything opens back up, it's hard to want to get back out and drive for
Yeah,
4 hours and do a
I
dance and
agree.
drive back. You got to get back into it again. But yeah.
When everything first started shutting down, um, and I don't talk about it a whole lot. When everything first started shutting down, it's like, all right, this is awesome. This is going to be for about a month, 2 months, whatever. I
Right.
I'm going to do nothing but memorize stuff. I'm just going to have this ridiculous choreography coming back. And 3 months in, I was like, what am I doing? I'm calling to pillows on the floor in my living room. This is
Right.
ridiculous. So just like everybody else, calling shut down for me. And I saw it when we started back 2 years ago, whatever it was, when we started dancing kind of regular again.
Yep.
For whatever, I could not remember the word coordinate to save my life. It took me about 5 dances. I would be calling plus, blah, 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 and I would get them in position. I'm like, what is that word? I could not remember if the word coordinate. I've got it now, but you lose stuff. And
Yeah.
the way I've said it is, it's the same thing, but I work at it every day, choreography wise. The dancers, same thing. How much did the dancer lose over 2 years of not dancing?
Right.
And so that's why some of a lot of places have caught back up. But some of the dancing is because of COVID, why it kind of fell off a little bit too.
Yep. Yep.
Um, I mean, I couldn't remember the word coordinate. You think they can remember how to do coordinate?
Right.
So
Don't you love it? Because that happens once in a great while. You know what you want to do, and the word just slips away.
yep,
You want to like, or else you want to call uh, a linear cycle, and you
mm-hmm.
say linear action instead. Something that
I tell you one that and it still avoids when I'm just calling when I'm citing it. AC Doocy. For some reason I can't get those words. I'll sit there and I'll go, hey, do that thing where y'all trade in the middle and the outsides go around. And
right,
of course, my club knows it now. So they
right,
just know that for some reason he can't call AC Doocy every time he wants to.
right.
So, oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Oh, that being said, do you have a favorite call?
Oh,
Mainstream
favorite
Plus, anything like that?
uh favorite call. Um, Mainstream and plus. I know I kind of like them all. Um, good. I think my favorite call might be there's a C3B call called Flip Your Lid, which is kind of cool. It's
Oh,
fun to watch.
okay. I'll check that out.
It's
Really?
yeah, you have to look it up. It's hard to.
Okay. Not
It's
well.
a nice flowing. It's one of these calls where everybody's doing something different, so it's uh it's kind of an interesting call. But um, I don't know. It's like all the moves are have good and bad.
Yeah.
There's some. I used to really not like load the boat because I always thought it was crowded in the center, moving around. But everybody loves the call, and it's okay. It's good too. Uh, it's a personal thing, I guess. They talk about Callerlab or whoever callers talk about lists and what calls should be there and shouldn't be
Right.
there, and that's a tough subject. And if you shorten the list, if you want to get rid of some calls, it's always somebody's favorite call.
Mhm.
Somebody, every call is going to be somebody's favorite. So I think in the end, as callers, if if the group decides that they don't want a certain call on the list, all right, you just have to, the individual just go with it. It's like
Yeah.
some people like spin chain through or spin chain the gears. Spin chain the gears doesn't get called a lot. You know, if you look at, I don't hear it a lot anyway,
No, you'll
nationally,
always hear spin chain exchange the gears. You'll rarely hear spin chain the gears.
right?
It's
Or
spin
there's
chain
like
through, which
wheel
is
and deal
mainstream.
from two-phase lines. You might
Yeah.
not get much, but there's somebody that loves those calls. But if nobody uses them and we decide to push them off to another level or stick them in
Yeah.
C4, then you know, just I don't know, where did this start? Favorite call? I guess I
Yeah.
don't have. So
And it was flip your lid. I've got that. I'll go back and run that one down later.
it's sort of a somebody has described it like it starts from a quarter tag setup and it's sort of
Okay.
like a scoot back on steroids of some people.
Okay. Nice. Gotcha.
I jokingly say it's more like scoot back on angel dust or something. It's just kind of strange call.
That's a good 80s reference right there. Angel
I
Dust. Okay. I got you.
never
That's
touched the
good.
stuff,
No, I
by
got
the way,
you.
but still, you hear the terminology.
Oh, yeah. Matter of fact, my dance this Thursday, it is I Want My MTV dance. It's an all 80s. I actually called my president and said, "Hey, I want to do an all 80s," and so she came up with the title of the dance.
Yeah,
So I'm looking forward to that, and I was amazed at how many 80s songs that I have. I started just going through pattern. I've got a ton of 80s stuff. I
yeah,
just picked up one from Square Dance Bob's website.
yeah,
Um, Money for Nothing, Dire
yeah,
Straits. That's a pattern. It's
yeah.
phenomenal. Love that song.
We'll
So I'm
have
gonna
to
go
we'll have to talk sometime offline. You can give me a list of the songs you have because
okay,
that stuff too. We'll have to compare
very
notes.
nice. That's awesome. Okay, yeah, I stick around in the '80s and '70s. Scott Bennett with Crest, Acme, and Peak. Fantastic stuff. Of course, I had my shirt on earlier. Throwback tunes, Ted Lazat stuff.
Yes, yeah,
It's
yeah,
just really good stuff. One thing I did know growing up, I cannot do high songs. And what I mean by that, like Poison, Def Leppard, the voice range is so high. And,
right,
and Ted has a Poison song, and I bought it immediately when it came out, and I'm like, I am awful at this. I cannot do this song ever. So
right,
I use it for patter half the time now, and I don't put the words in.
right.
Oh my goodness. So that's why I guess that's why I'm a George Strait guy. I can kind of get in his range, and I do country.
Right.
Um, but love me some '80s. A little
That's
bit
okay.
more about you, man. I just came up with this. I sent you a little list and all that. And so let's just whatever you want to put out there. Favorite food?
Ooh. Favorite food? I don't know. I don't know if I have a favorite food.
Hamburger, steak, chicken, barbecue. What are you?
Uh, Steak is good. Barbecued chicken if it's done right.
Okay.
And you know, I like seafood a lot.
Okay. Nice. Okay.
Lobster, fish, for the most part.
Now, and since I know very little, once you get past South Carolina, North Carolina, the part of New York you're in, is it good for seafood or no? I mean, you're not
Not
coastal, but
particularly. I mean, you can get
okay,
seafood, but
right,
uh, it's not like you're in Maine on the coast
okay.
and lobster shacks. But,
That's my little thing with my wife is she likes seafood. I'm not a big seafood fan. I told her the only time I eat seafood is when I can walk to the body of water that it might have come from.
right.
So when we go to Florida and we're in Tampa,
Yeah.
Florida, I will eat fish tacos. I'll eat whatever they have
Yeah.
because I assume now it might have come from a freezer. I don't know, but I like to assume it came from the Gulf. So I kind of locked myself out. I told her if we ever go to Maine, I would try lobster. I've never had lobster. If we go to Maine, I'll go. If we go to Maryland, I'll eat crab cakes. But
Right.
outside of that, I'm not going to do it.
Right. Well,
So,
steaks are good, if they're done right. Veggies are good. I eat a lot of veggies.
do you? Okay, very nice. Okay.
You know,
I don't know. I don't mind vegetables. I don't pick them out if I don't have to. But if they're on the plate, I'll eat them. If I go to somebody's house and they're serving them, I'll eat them. Favorite drink? Alcohol, non-alcohol, up to you.
water. Boring. Sorry. I drink
Water.
water. Yeah.
Well, good for you, man.
Yeah.
Water doesn't typically come out there. Of course, growing up in the South, Coca-Cola is
Yep.
my go-to
Yep.
in all time.
So, so do you call like if you have a Coke or a Sprite or a lot of people up here call it soda. What do you guys?
You know, growing up, we don't call it pop. We don't call it soda. Just about everything is Coke. I'll say I'm going to get a Coke and I might go get something else. I might get Mountain Dew or something. I'm always saying I'm going to get a Coke.
Yeah.
It's something like that. Maybe soft drink on occasion you might hear that, but never hear pop or anything like that. So
I call it pop. It kind of drives my wife a little crazy
no,
because
I understand. I've got a few friends in my regular job that are from Wisconsin and all that, and they all say pop, and I'm like, what are you talking about? And then the other people that just love Pepsi, and I'm like, I don't know what your thing is with Pepsi because I'm a Coke guy.
my
Um,
mom's mother was Canadian and it was pop in
yep,
Canada.
yep.
It's pop in Rochester and Buffalo, which are west of here. So
Mhm.
it's right on the edge of pop and soda.
Very nice. Okay. Favorite restaurant? Do you have
Oh,
one?
probably local restaurant. I just ate at this restaurant a few weeks ago in Rochester, and it was called Good Luck, and
Okay.
it was I, I guess it was American restaurant. I don't think there was any theme to it. And the food was just
Okay.
really good,
Wow. Okay. Very nice.
just the right amount, not too much, but just really good.
And one more thing before we get, I really like to know because I'm crazy this way. A movie that if you see it on TV, everything stops and you have to finish it. Movie or TV show?
I'm not I don't watch a lot of movies. I like the Clint Eastwood movies.
Okay.
Dirty Harry movies are good. Uh, television show, 70s and 80s sitcoms. Uh, if I see one of those on, I'm apt to watch it. Um, what did I watch the other day? Remember Emergency?
Oh gosh, yeah.
Adam 12? Yeah,
Squad 51,
yes.
Emergency. Yep.
365.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. I tell you, I've told a few people too. My wife and I, we've gone back and started rewatching stuff, and we've done that for a couple of years now. But the original Hawaii Five O
Yeah.
with Jack Lord is phenomenal TV.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I joke about it. I said, hey, let's just watch all the seasons. Well, back then, seasons had 22 to 30 episodes.
Right.
It's not like now as a season is 10 episodes. You can crank through 5 seasons of Game of Thrones in 3 days.
Right.
But uh, Hawaii Five O, Three's Company, this thing
Right.
has 30 episodes a season. You can't get through it in a month.
Right.
So
Right. Yeah.
that's awesome stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, you go back and catch that first season of Hawaii Five O. It's just something else. It's amazing TV.
Maybe I'll
So,
do that. Yeah.
so
Yeah. Hey, I got to mention one thing before I
yeah,
forget.
yeah,
You
yeah,
asked me
no,
what
no,
other
anytime.
clubs I
Go.
called for.
No time frame. Go ahead, buddy.
You asked me what other clubs I called for, and well, apologize to those people who I call Wednesday nights on Zoom. We do some two couple A2 and C1, which started because of COVID,
Okay.
and it's just continued ever since. There's two other callers. that are married. It's Karen Rabe and Greg Moore. Also called. We split the thing and we signed in on little Zoom channel, and we do two couple.
Wow. Very nice.
And then we do 3 C1 tips and 3 A2 tips. That's fun to write for. At first you think two couple material, how exciting can this be?
Yeah.
And then you find out there's things you can do with two couples, especially if you work with some phantoms or spots that you just can't do with 8 people. And so that's, and if you ask me to give you an example, I can't now.
Oh, I understand.
But as you're writing, you find it's like, hey, this is really cool. And so Wednesday nights also.
Okay.
I can send you the Zoom link for that too.
Absolutely. Send me that. That'd be great. I'd like to look into that. With my club, we always have the issue with we'll have an odd number of people, and I guess most clubs do. You've got an odd number, and there's on occasion you'll have enough to make another square, but you might only have 2 couples.
Yeah.
And it'd be nice to say, you know what? Hey, let's just break all the squares down into 2 couples,
Right.
And we'll go with that. We've batted around the idea of hexagon squares and stuff when we have an odd number of couples or that type of thing. And I've taken several workshops on it, but I'm not comfortable trying it yet. So yeah, I would love to see some of the 2 couple stuff. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I went to a hexagon some lessons with Clark Baker at MIT several years ago, and it was neat. He started with 3 couples and show how 3 couples kind of works like 2 couples would if you had for normal squares. And then once you work with 3 couples a little bit and see how that works, then you can apply that to a hexagon.
Gotcha.
But I do some calling to rectangles, where you have 2 side couples and 4 head couples, and you can.
Wow, nice.
Which that works about the same.
Okay.
There's certain things you can't do, but it's certainly easier for the dancers to understand than hexagons. Hexagons, you need some instruction ahead of time.
And that's kind of where I kind of want to branch out to with my call. Of course, I'm always trying to get better. I'm always trying to work on choreography. But I would like to get into some of the more not so common, like you're saying, 6 couples, or hexagons or 4 heads and 2 sides, whatever, and kind of go through there. I've got an idea, but we don't dance a lot of it down here. You see it in other places sometimes.
Yeah.
But I would like to kind of research some of that. That way I can. All I want to do is adjust for like my club when we've got 2 extra couples. What are we going to do? Like, hey, I know what we can do. So that's awesome, dude. Any of that stuff, man, absolutely. Email it to me. I'd love to take a look at it. It'd be great.
Yeah. Will do.
All right, Dave. Well, we covered anything else? I'll definitely make sure you email me all your stuff tonight. I'm going to edit this and put it all together so we can get this out about your benefit dance coming up this weekend. Anything else we want to throw in there about Dave Eno?
Oh, not really.
Okay.
Square dance scholar.
How about this? Favorite song to play on your guitar?
I don't know. I just that was harder than favorite food.
Okay. All right. Well, all right, brother. Send me all your stuff. We're gonna get this out. I'm gonna put this out on Wednesday this week. As soon as I can get it turned around to get the word out. And it has been a pleasure getting to talk to you. And I won't get to see you at Nationals. Hopefully we can run into each other at some point. You can either get down toward Georgia or I can get up around New York. And if not, we'll try and run into each other at a national or some kind of convention somewhere.
Yeah, looking forward to it. This was a lot of fun.
All right, Dave. It's awesome, buddy. I appreciate it. And we'll get this out, get me everything. And I look forward to talking to you again.
Same here.
All right, buddy. Take it easy. All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Let your legs